If money could buy happiness, then Mrs. Adanna Roberts should have been the happiest woman alive. She owned a mansion that looked like a palace, cars that most people only saw in magazines, and a fortune so vast that entire cities whispered her name with awe and envy. But beneath the glittering surface of unimaginable wealth, one truth gnawed at her heart. She was desperately, painfully alone. The grand gates of the Roberts estate swung open with mechanical precision, revealing a driveway that seemed to stretch endlessly, lined with neatly pruned hedges and exotic flowers imported from across the world. Expensive cars, sleek black Bentleys, a silver Rolls-Royce and a blood-red Ferrari, stood like trophies in the parking lot, polished until they reflected the morning sun. The house itself rose like a palace, 3 stories of white marble framed with golden accents, its tall glass windows glowing as though they held secrets of another world. Inside, the luxury was almost suffocating. Crystal chandeliers rained light onto the marble floors, and paintings worth millions adorned every wall. Maids in crisp uniforms moved quietly, carrying trays of breakfast and tending to the endless demands of maintaining such grandeur. Yet, despite the bustling activity, the house felt strangely empty, like a stage without a play. At the heart of it all sat Mrs. Adanna Roberts. Barely in her late 30s, she radiated elegance, her slender figure wrapped in a designer silk robe. Her face, though beautiful, carried the subtle weight of solitude, eyes that sparkled only when her daughter was around. Widowed 5 years earlier after her husband's sudden death in a plane crash, Adanna had inherited not only his vast fortune but also the heavy responsibility of running his empire. This morning was no different. Her study was filled with papers, contracts, and financial reports. Her assistant spoke rapidly over the phone, discussing stock projections and boardroom politics. Adanna nodded absently, sipping her coffee, her mind elsewhere. She was respected in business circles, feared by rivals, admired by employees, but behind the glassy exterior of power she felt a gnawing emptiness. Her salvation, however, was a small burst of joy, her daughter Lily. The sound of tiny feet pattering across the marble hallway echoed like music. Adanna's face softened instantly. Lily, barely 8 years old, ran in wearing a pink nightgown, clutching a stuffed teddy bear. "Mommy," she squealed, leaping into her mother's lap. Adanna laughed, pulling her close. "Good morning, my princess. Did you sleep well?" Lily nodded vigorously. "Yes, but I had a dream. You were smiling, Mommy, a big smile like when Daddy was alive." The words pierced Adanna's heart. She stroked her daughter's hair, forcing a smile. "I do smile, darling. Every time I see you." But Lily frowned, tilting her head with the brutal honesty only a child could wield. "Not the same, Mommy. You're lonely. Maybe you need someone to make you happy again." The room fell silent. The assistant quietly slipped out, sensing the shift. Adanna's smile faltered, and for a fleeting second, her carefully guarded composure cracked. "Lonely." The word hung in the air like a truth she had been avoiding. She kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered, "Don't worry about me, Lily. I have you, that's all I need." But deep inside, even as she said it, Adanna knew her daughter was right. Children have a way of seeing truths that adults carefully bury beneath layers of pride, duty, and fear. For Lily Roberts, her mother's loneliness was as obvious as the sun in the morning sky. She might not have understood the complexities of widowhood or the crushing weight of empire management, but she understood one thing. Her mother rarely laughed, and when she did, it was never quite the same as before. Breakfast was served in the dining hall, a cavernous room with ceilings so high they seemed to touch the sky. A table of polished mahogany stretched across the room, set with golden cutlery and crystal glasses. Servants moved gracefully, laying out exotic dishes, fresh croissants, imported cheeses, bowls of tropical fruit and freshly squeezed juice. Yet, despite the extravagance, only 2 people sat at that massive table, Adanna and Lily. Lily swung her little legs under the chair as she buttered her toast clumsily. She looked across the table at her mother, who was scanning a document while absently stirring her coffee. "Mommy," Lily said softly. "Yes, darling?" Adanna replied without looking up. Lily tilted her head, her big brown eyes full of curiosity. "Why don't you have a husband like the other kids' mommies?" Adanna froze. The spoon clinked against the cup as her hand trembled ever so slightly. She forced a smile and set the paper aside. "Sweetheart, not everyone needs a husband to be happy. I have you and you're all I'll ever need." But Lily wasn't convinced. "But, you look sad sometimes. You try to hide it, but I see it. Daddy made you smile. Maybe someone else could too." The words, innocent yet piercing, struck her harder than any business negotiation ever had. Adanna's heart twisted. She had spent years shielding her daughter from her grief, but children with their unfiltered eyes could see past walls adults thought were impenetrable. She leaned forward, cupping Lily's small hands in hers. Life doesn't always work that way, my princess. People don't just appear when you need them. Lily, however, was undeterred. She pouted in thought, then suddenly brightened with the kind of determination only an 8-year-old could muster. Then I'll find someone for you. Someone who will make you laugh again. Adanna laughed nervously, shaking her head. Oh, Lily. That's not your job. Don't worry about mommy. You just be my happy little girl. But Lily pressed on, eyes wide with childlike sincerity. I'm serious. I want you to be happy, mommy. I'll ask God to send you someone kind. You'll see. Adanna smiled faintly, masking the lump in her throat. She stroked her daughter's cheek, whispering, My darling girl, you have the purest heart. But later that day, as she retreated to her office, her daughter's words echoed in her mind. Why don't you have a husband like the other kids' mommies? The question had been asked with such innocence, yet it unraveled a loneliness she had spent years pretending did not exist. It was a Thursday afternoon when fate intervened. Adanna's chauffeured black Bentley rolled slowly through the bustling streets of Lagos as she picked Lily up from school. Traffic thickened near a busy junction, where street vendors shouted about their wares: roasted corn, phone chargers, bottles of chilled water. Amid the chaos, one figure stood out. On the sidewalk sat a man, his clothes tattered, his shoes worn nearly to the sole. He wasn't begging, shouting, or chasing after cars like the others. Instead, he sat with his back against a crumbling wall, hunched over a battered, torn book. His lips moved silently as he read, his expression focused, his posture oddly dignified despite his ragged state. Mommy, look. Lily's voice piped up from the back seat. She pressed her face against the window, her eyes wide. That man is reading. Adanna barely glanced at him. Don't stare, darling. He's just unfortunate. But Lily persisted. No, Mommy. He's different. Look. She tugged at the driver's sleeve. Stop the car, please. Before Adanna could protest, the driver pulled over. Lily bounded out of the car with her school lunchbox in hand. Lily. Adanna called sharply, her heart skipping a beat as she rushed after her. By the time she reached her, Lily was already standing before the homeless man. He looked up, startled, his eyes meeting hers. They were striking, deep brown, intelligent, and filled with something Adanna hadn't expected: dignity. Hello, Lily said cheerfully, holding out her sandwich. Are you hungry? The man blinked, then slowly took the sandwich with careful hands as though it were something fragile. Thank you, he said softly, his voice calm, articulate, too refined for someone on the street. You are very kind. Adanna caught her breath. Something about his tone unsettled her. Come on, Lily, she urged, taking her daughter's hand. We shouldn't bother him. But Lily pulled back stubbornly. He wasn't begging, Mommy. He was just reading. Isn't that smart? The man gave a faint, wry smile. Your daughter is very observant. He nodded politely at Adanna. Thank you for raising a child with such kindness. Adanna's cheeks warmed. She wasn't used to being spoken to with such quiet authority, especially not by someone in rags. Without another word, she tugged Lily back toward the car, her heart beating faster than it should have. As the Bentley pulled away, Adanna stole a glance through the tinted glass. The man had already returned to his book, as though the world around him didn't exist. But Lily whispered with conviction, Mommy, I like him. He looks kind. He could make you smile. Adanna stiffened. She didn't reply. Yet, for reasons she couldn't explain, the image of those intelligent eyes stayed with her long after they left the street behind. Over the next few days, Lily's curiosity only grew stronger. Each time their car passed that corner, her small hands pressed against the glass, searching for the man with the torn book. And each time she spotted him, her face lit up like a lantern. Mommy, can we stop? Please? She would beg. At first, Adanna resisted. She told herself it was dangerous, unnecessary, even embarrassing for someone of their status. But Lily was persistent in the way only children could be, her voice soft, her eyes pleading, her spirit unshakable. Finally, Adanna gave in. That afternoon, the Bentley slowed near the familiar corner. Michael, the man in rags, was there again, sitting with the same composure as before, as if the chaos of the city swirled around him but never touched him. His back was straight, his gaze fixed on the book, lips moving silently in concentration. Lily jumped out with her lunchbox again. Hello, mister, she chirped, skipping toward him. Michael looked up, startled but amused. You again? Yes. Lily plopped down on the pavement beside him, completely unconcerned with the dirt. I brought you rice and chicken today. Mommy's chef made it. It's really yummy. Adanna, standing a few feet away, felt her face burn with embarrassment. The chauffeur lingered close, ready to step in if needed. Michael accepted the food with gratitude, bowing his head slightly. You honor me. Thank you, young lady. Lily tilted her head. What are you reading? Michael smiled faintly, holding up the tattered book. Shakespeare. Hamlet. Adanna blinked. A homeless man, reading Shakespeare? What's it about? Lily asked eagerly. Michael's eyes softened as he explained. It's about a prince who feels sad and alone because he lost his father. He wonders if life is worth living when everything feels broken. His gaze flickered briefly toward Adanna before returning to the child. But in the end, it's about courage, choosing to keep living even when life is hard. Lily's expression turned solemn. Like Mommy? The word stabbed through Adanna's chest. She took a sharp breath, ready to hush her daughter, but Michael simply nodded with a quiet understanding that unsettled her. You're very wise, Michael told Lily gently. And your mother is strong. You should be proud of her. Lily beamed, then blurted out, You'd make her smile again if you were my daddy. Adanna's eyes widened. Her pulse quickened, humiliation and anger flooding her cheeks. Lily, that's enough. She pulled her daughter to her feet. We're leaving now. Michael didn't laugh. He didn't mock. He only bowed his head slightly, his dignity unbroken despite the situation. Children speak from the heart, he said softly. Adanna grabbed Lily's hand, half dragging her back toward the car. But inside her chest ached. Something about the man's calmness, his intelligence, and his refusal to be bitter about his state made her uneasy. That night, when she tucked Lily into bed, the child whispered one last thought. Mommy? I think he's special. I think Daddy would like him. Adanna lay awake long after Lily slept, haunted by the memory of those quiet, knowing eyes. The following evening, the tension between mother and daughter reached its peak. Dinner was served in the candlelit dining hall, but the air was heavy, thick with unspoken words. Adanna cut into her salmon in silence, her mind replaying the street corner encounter. Lily, however, had no such restraint. Mommy, Lily began suddenly, why can't Michael be my new daddy? The fork clattered from Adanna's hand. Lily. Her daughter blinked at her innocently. What? He's kind. He's smart. He reads big books. And he said you're strong. I like him. Adanna's chest tightened, anger laced with something she couldn't name. You don't understand, darling. That man, he's homeless. He lives on the streets. We don't know anything about him. But I do know him. Lily insisted, her voice rising with conviction. He doesn't ask for money like the others. He just reads and talks nicely. He's different, Mommy. I can feel it. Adanna pushed her plate away, frustration surging. Enough, Lily. I won't hear another word about this man. The little girl's lips trembled, her eyes brimming with tears. You're not even listening to me. You're always busy with work and pretending to be fine, but I can see you're not. Michael makes me feel safe. And I know he can make you happy again. Adanna's hands trembled against the tablecloth. For years she had buried her grief under endless work and wealth, building walls of glass and steel around her heart. But here was her daughter, her innocent, relentless daughter, tearing those walls down with a single plea. She forced her tone into something calmer, though her voice cracked. Lily, I love you more than anything. But life doesn't work the way fairy tales do. Not everyone can be trusted. I don't need a man to complete me. Lily wiped her tears stubbornly. But you need someone to make you laugh again. The words lingered long after dinner ended. Adanna retreated to her bedroom, staring at the city lights outside her window. Her daughter's voice replayed in her mind like an echo. Michael makes me feel safe. He can make you happy again. And despite all her arguments, Adanna couldn't silence the truth gnawing at her. For the first time in years, her carefully balanced world felt shaken. Not by a business rival, not by a crisis in the company, but by a ragged stranger on the street and the stubborn love of a child. The following weekend, Adanna attended a charity gala hosted at one of Lagos's grandest hotels. The event glittered with diamonds, silk gowns, and champagne flowing like water. Every guest was wealthy, powerful, and dressed to impress. Flashing cameras clicked as she stepped into the hall, her figure radiant in an emerald gown that shimmered beneath the lights. Yet, despite the glamour, the air reeked of something she despised: pretension. Wealthy men circled her like vultures, each one trying to impress her. One boasted about his oil empire. Another bragged about his private jets. A third leaned too close, his cologne suffocating, his eyes calculating her every move like she was a prize to be won. "Mrs. Roberts," one of them said smoothly, lifting his glass, "you deserve a man who can match your status. Don't waste your beauty on loneliness." Adanna smiled politely but felt hollow inside. Their words dripped with greed, not affection. None of them saw her as a woman, they saw her as a jewel to flaunt, a bank account to exploit. As the orchestra played in the background, she excused herself to the balcony for air. The city skyline stretched before her, glittering with lights. She sipped her wine, but her mind wandered to a very different man. She pictured Michael, sitting quietly with his torn book, his voice calm and steady as he explained Shakespeare to Lily. No arrogance. No pretense. No hunger for power. Only dignity even in rags. The contrast struck her like lightning. Here she was, surrounded by men dripping in gold, yet none could touch her heart. And yet, a homeless man, someone who had nothing, had somehow unsettled her soul with just a look, a voice, a quiet truth. Her chest tightened. She set down the glass, staring at her reflection in the window. 4 years she had lived in a gilded cage, and tonight she realized how suffocating it had become. When she returned to the hall, the suitors were still waiting, their smiles too polished, their eyes too hungry. She felt nothing but disdain. For the first time in years, Adanna asked herself a dangerous question. What if wealth wasn't the answer? What if love could come from the most unlikely of places? 2 days later, Adanna discovered just how far her daughter's determination had gone. She had returned home earlier than usual, intending to surprise Lily with a new dollhouse. But when she entered the mansion, the housekeeper hesitated before speaking. "Madam, Miss Lily went out," she insisted on taking the driver. Adanna's pulse quickened. She hurried to the car and ordered the chauffeur to follow Lily's route. Her heart pounded as they pulled up near the now familiar street corner. And there she saw it, her daughter kneeling on the dusty ground before Michael, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. "Please, Michael," Lily's voice rang out, clear and earnest. "Please marry my mommy. She's lonely. I don't want her to be sad anymore. Please make her happy again." Adanna froze, her breath stolen from her lungs. Michael's eyes widened in shock. He looked from the little girl to the elegant car parked nearby, realizing instantly who was watching. His voice broke as he whispered, "Lily, I can't. Your mother deserves someone worthy, someone who can give her the world. Not a broken man like me." Tears welled in Lily's eyes. "But you're kind. You're good. That's better than all the rich men who only want her money." Adanna felt her knees weaken. She wanted to rush forward, to pull her daughter away, to silence the humiliation, but her feet were rooted to the ground. She could not move because every word Lily spoke echoed the truth she had buried deep inside. Michael gently placed a hand on Lily's shoulder. His voice trembled but remained steady. "One day you'll understand that love is not that simple. Your mother, she is far above me. I am not the man she needs." But as he spoke, his eyes lifted, locking with Adanna's across the street. For a fleeting second, everything else faded, the noise of the city, the passers-by, the honking cars. Just the two of them, bound by an unspoken connection neither dared to admit. Adanna's heart thundered. Shame, anger, and something else, something terrifying, rushed through her veins. She pulled Lily into her arms at last, whispering, "Enough, darling. Enough." But as she led her daughter back to the car, her hands shook. Michael's words echoed inside her. "Not a broken man like me." And she wondered, was he right, or was he exactly what she had been missing all along? The night after Lily's bold plea, Adanna could not sleep. She tossed restlessly in her king-sized bed, the silk sheets cool against her skin yet offering no comfort. Her mind replayed the scene over and over, her daughter kneeling, Michael's trembling voice, his eyes that held pain and dignity all at once. Who was he? Curiosity gnawed at her. She was not a woman who tolerated unanswered questions. The next morning she called her trusted private investigator, a man discreet enough to handle delicate matters. "I need everything you can find on a man named Michael," she instructed. Homeless, mid-30s, usually seen around Oberlin Junction. Discreetly. Within days a thick file landed on her desk. Michael Adeyemi. Age 35. Former secondary school teacher. Once celebrated for his brilliance, loved by his students. Fired from his post after being falsely accused of embezzling funds from a school project. A scheme orchestrated by a corrupt principal. Unable to fight back legally due to lack of resources, his reputation crumbled. his fiancée left him. His family abandoned him ashamed. With nowhere to go, he fell into the streets, surviving on odd jobs and scraps. Adanna's chest tightened as she flipped through the photographs. Michael in a crisp shirt, smiling with students around him. Michael receiving a community award years ago. Then Michael now, gaunt and weathered, sitting on the pavement with his book. It was a tragedy, but what struck her most was the consistency. Not once had he been arrested for theft, violence, or drugs, unlike many who had fallen on hard times. His record was clean. Despite everything, he had not allowed bitterness to turn him into something he wasn't. That evening, as Lily played in her room, Adanna sat alone in her study. She whispered into the silence, "You're not just a homeless man. You're someone who life broke and left behind." Tears pricked her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt her heart ache for someone other than herself. The following day, Adanna made a decision that shocked even herself. She ordered her driver to stop at Michael's corner. When she stepped out of the car, heads turned. A billionaire lady in a tailored suit, stepping onto dusty pavement, heels clicking against broken concrete. Michael looked up from his book, startled. "Mrs. Roberts," he said quietly, standing to his feet. His tone was cautious, respectful. Adanna crossed her arms, masking the storm inside her. "I need to speak with you." Michael hesitated, then nodded. "Of course." For a moment they simply stood there, the noise of the city buzzing around them. Finally, Adanna broke the silence. "My daughter, she's very attached to you. She believes you could make me happy. But I can't have her holding on to false hopes." Michael's expression softened with sorrow. "I never encouraged her. Children see what they want to see. She just has a pure heart." Adanna's voice cracked despite her efforts to sound stern. "You should have told her to stop." "I did," Michael replied gently. His gaze was steady, unflinching. "But she sees something in me that I no longer see in myself. I cannot erase that." His words hit her like a blow. She opened her mouth, then closed it, struggling to breathe. "Do you know how dangerous this is? You, a stranger, a homeless man, tangled in my daughter's heart." Michael's jaw tightened, but his tone remained humble. "You think I wanted this? That I sought her out? I didn't. She came to me and she gave me kindness when the world gave me nothing. I never asked for it. And I would never hurt her." Adanna's eyes blurred with tears. For a moment, the walls she had built cracked and she saw him, not as a threat, not as a beggar, but as a man stripped of everything yet refusing to lose his dignity. She turned abruptly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Stay away from her." But as she walked back to the car, her hands trembled and her chest ached. Because deep inside, a quiet voice told her she didn't truly want him to stay away. That night, Adanna sat on the balcony of her mansion, gazing at the city lights. The cool breeze brushed against her skin, but her heart burned with conflict. Michael's words echoed endlessly. "Your daughter sees something I no longer see in myself." Her gaze drifted to the window of Lily's room. She could see her daughter sleeping peacefully, clutching her teddy bear. "Maybe you're right, my love," Adanna whispered into the night. "Maybe mommy does need someone to make her laugh again." The next morning she made a decision that would alter everything. She returned to Michael's corner, not in her car, not as a billionaire, but simply as a woman. She wore a plain dress, her hair pulled back simply, no jewelry, no entourage. Michael looked at her in surprise. "You came back." "Yes," she said softly. "Not for Lily. For me." They walked together along the street and for the first time, Adanna listened to his story, not the file, not the investigator's report, but from his own lips. He spoke of betrayal, of dreams lost, of nights spent hungry and days spent forgotten. His voice cracked only once when he spoke of his students, how he missed teaching them, guiding them, giving them hope. Adanna's chest tightened. She had spent years in boardrooms filled with men boasting of profits and power. Yet here was a man with nothing, whose only regret was that he could no longer give knowledge to children. By the time they parted, something inside her had shifted. For the first time in years she felt alive. Adanna began to act quietly. She arranged for new clothes to be left near Michael's spot, careful not to insult his pride by handing them directly. She spoke to an old friend who ran a private school, convincing him to grant Michael an interview. At first, Michael resisted. "I don't want your charity," he said firmly. "It isn't charity," Adanna replied. "It's respect, for what you once were and what you still can be." Slowly he accepted. He shaved, cut his hair, and wore the fresh clothes with quiet dignity. At the interview his passion for teaching shone through. Though hesitant to hire a man with such a tarnished past, The principal was persuaded by Adanna's personal endorsement and Michael's undeniable brilliance. When Michael walked into the classroom again, chalk in hand, eyes alight, something inside him reawakened. He came alive before the children, explaining lessons with a fervor that reminded Adanna of the fire she once saw in her late husband. That evening, Adanna stood at the back of the classroom unnoticed, tears slipping down her cheeks. For the first time she saw not a broken man, but the man he was always meant to be. Weeks later, Adanna invited Michael to the mansion, not as charity but as a friend. Lily squealed with joy when she saw him, clapping her hands. "Did you ask my mommy yet?" she demanded innocently. Michael flushed, nearly dropping the teacup in his hand. Adanna laughed nervously, but instead of silencing her daughter, she looked at him with an expression that made his heart race. "Maybe you should," she whispered softly, her eyes locking with his. Michael froze, overwhelmed. "I have nothing to give you. No fortune, no name. Only myself, and that hardly seems enough." Adanna's eyes glistened. "You've already given me something no man ever has, hope. And that is worth more than all the money in the world." Lily clapped her hands. "So it's a yes?" "Yay." The three of them laughed, but behind the laughter was a truth neither adult could deny. Something extraordinary had begun. As weeks turned into months, whispers spread. Society frowned at the idea of a billionaire widow spending time with a man from the streets. Business partners warned her. Friends ridiculed her. One evening during a tense board meeting, an investor sneered, "A woman of your stature consorting with a beggar? It's unbecoming. You'll destroy your reputation." Adanna rose to her feet, her voice calm but steely. "My reputation is not built on who I love. It is built on what I stand for. And if I choose dignity over arrogance, kindness over greed, then I stand taller than any of you." Michael, who had been waiting outside, overheard every word. When she emerged, he whispered, "Why would you risk so much for me?" Her answer was simple. "Because you're worth it." That night, under the starlit sky, Michael finally confessed. "I love you, Adanna. I have tried to deny it, but I can't anymore." She smiled through tears. "Then don't." And with that, their lips met, two broken hearts finding wholeness at last. Months later, the world had changed for all three of them. Michael, now reinstated as a respected teacher, walked hand in hand with Adanna and Lily through the streets of Lagos. No longer ragged, no longer forgotten. He carried himself with pride, not because of the clothes or the job, but because he had found family again. Lily skipped happily between them, her tiny hands clutching theirs. "See, Mommy? I told you he would make you smile again." Adanna laughed, her heart light for the first time in years. She looked at Michael, who met her gaze with the same steady eyes that once haunted her. "Yes, my darling," she whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. "You were right." The city lights glimmered around them, but none shone brighter than the love that bound them together. In the end, it wasn't wealth that saved Adanna. It wasn't power, status, or luxury. It was a child's innocent heart, a broken man's dignity, and a woman's courage to love again. And so, the story closed not with loneliness, but with laughter echoing into the night.